William H. Crawford is not some kind of guts and Blackpowder NPC, but he is an historical figure who was a senator, cabinet member, and a minister to France. Let me tell his life story about him. Crawford was born on February 24, 1772, in the portion of Amherst County, Virginia, that later became Nelson County, the son of Joel Crawford and Fanny Harris, but at least one source has given his birthplace as Tusculum, a house whose site remains in Amherst County. He moved with his family to Edgefield County, South Carolina, in 1779 and to Columbia County, Georgia, in 1783. Crawford was educated at private schools in Georgia and at Richmond Academy in Augusta. After his father's death, Crawford became the family's main financial provider, and he worked on the Crawford family farm and taught school. He later studied law, was admitted to the bar in 1799 and began to practice in Lexington. Also in 1799, Crawford was appointed by the state legislature to prepare a digest of Georgia's statutes. He influenced Georgia politics for decades. In 1803, Crawford was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives as a member of the Democratic-Republican Party, and he served until 1807. He allied himself with Senator James Jackson. Their enemies were the Clarkites, led by John Clark. In 1802, he shot and killed Peter Lawrence Van Allen, a Clark ally, in a duel. 4 years later, on December 16, 1806, Crawford faced Clark himself in a duel, and Crawford's left wrist was shattered by a shot from Clark, but he eventually recovered. In 1807, Crawford joined the 10th Congress as the junior U.S. Senator from Georgia when the Georgia legislature elected him to replace George Jones, who had held the office for a few months after the death of Abraham Baldwin. Crawford was elected President pro tempore of the Senate in March 1812, and following the April 20, 1812, death of Vice President George Clinton, served as the permanent presiding officer of the Senate until March 4, 1813. In 1811, Crawford declined to serve as Secretary of War in the Madison administration. In the Senate, he voted for several acts leading up to the War of 1812 and supported the entry into the war, but he was ready for peace.
Let it then be the wisdom of this nation to remain at peace, as long as peace is within its option.
Throughout his service in the Senate, Crawford was described as a member of the older, more traditional wing of the Democratic-Republican Party, and he often focused on issues such as state rights, which he supported. In 1813, President James Madison appointed Crawford as the US Minister to France during the waning years of Napoleon's First French Empire. Crawford served until 1815, shortly after the end of the Napoleonic Wars. Upon Crawford's return, Madison appointed him as Secretary of War on August 1, 1815. Crawford served more than a year in that post. He sought but narrowly failed to win the Democratic-Republican nomination for the 1816 presidential race. Madison appointed him Treasury Secretary on October 22, 1816. He remained in that post for the rest of Madison's term and both terms of President James Monroe, until March 6, 1825. While Treasury Secretary, he initiated the Reform Bill of 1817. The Congressional Caucus nominated Crawford for the 1824 election. However, Crawford had suffered a stroke in 1823 as a result of a lobelia prescription given to him by his physician. The Democratic-Republican Party was now split, and one of the splinter groups nominated Crawford. Despite improved health and the support of former Presidents Madison and Thomas Jefferson, he finished third in the electoral vote, behind Senator and General Andrew Jackson, hero of the Battle of New Orleans, and Secretary of State John Quincy Adams. In the subsequent contingent election, the House elected Adams president. William Harris Crawford died on September 15, 1834, while on the judicial circuit near Elberton, Georgia. Crawford is buried at the site of his home, about half a mile west of the current Crawford city limit.